In this ASMR episode, I will read Matilda from Roald Dahl in ASMR style for you. ASMR Katz. Hello my beloved mouse, and welcome back to my ASMR YouTube channel. My name is ASMR Katz, and I will read for you the fourth part of Matilda from Roald Dahl for you. So if you not already checked out the parts before, then I just can recommend you to do so, because this is a full book, but it's so big and massive that I have to work myself through part by part. And this is now the fourth part, and I just can tell you it is worth it to check out the first part, the second and the third until you come to the fourth part, that you actually know where the party is all about here. And for everyone who already did this, amazing. I'm super happy that you understood how it works here on my ASMR channel. And I think you are the same excited to see what will happen now in this book. So I hope that you make yourself comfortable, lean back, plug the headphones in your ear to get the best ASMR sound. Whoop whoop. Because all these microphones here, they actually have a reason for their existence. High quality is my most important value on this channel. So with the microphones and the headphones, I give you the best ASMR sound satisfaction you can get here around on YouTube. And if you not already follow me, then I would be happy if you can do. Follow, subscribe, click on the notification bell to see when I will read even more books or do other stuff. And yeah, always feel free to comment. Let me know your thoughts about the book Matilda, or as well, if you have any questions or suggestions, write them down in the comment section. And if you're curious about all my heart projects, because I'm not only on YouTube, then feel free to look in the section under the video here where I write some links down and tell you a bit more about what I do. Okay. So I would say we are half past through the book now with the fourth part. And if you again need to start all over, then start at the chapter 1. This is now here the fourth part of the book. The weekly test. At 2 o'clock sharp the class assembled, including Miss Honey, who noted that the judge of water and the glass were in a proper place. Then she took up a position standing right at the back. Everyone waited. Suddenly, in marched the giant figure of the headmistress in her belted smock and green breeches. "Good afternoon," she barked. "Good afternoon, Miss Tunchbull," they chirruped. The headmistress stood before the class, legs apart, hands on hips, glaring at the small boys and girls who sat nervously at their desk in front of her. "Not a very pretty sight," she said. Her expression was one of utter disgust, as though she were looking at something a dog had done in the middle of the floor. What a bunch of noising little warts you are. Everyone had to sense to stay silent. It makes me vomit, she went on, to think that I am going to have to put up with a lot of garbage like you in my school for the next 6 years. I can see that I'm going to have to expel as many of you as possible, as soon as possible, to save myself from going round the hand. She paused and snorted several times. It was a curious noise. You can hear the same sort of thing if you walk through a riding stable when the horses are being fed. I suppose, she went on, your mothers and fathers tell you you're wonderful. Well, I am here to tell you you are the opposite, and you better believe me. Stand up, everybody. They all got quickly to their feet. Now, put your hands out in front of you, and as I walk past, I want you to turn them over so I can see if they are clean on both sides. The trunchbull began a slow march along the room of desks inspanned at the hands. All went well until she came to a small boy in the second row. What's your name? She barked. Nigel, the boy said. Nigel what? Nigel Hicks, the boy said. Nigel Hicks what? The trunchbull bellowed. She bellowed so loud she nearly blew the little chap out of the window. That's it, Nigel. Unless you want my middle name as well. He was a brave little fellow, and one could see that he was trying not to be scared by the gorgon who towered above him. I do not want your middle names, your blister, the Georgian bellowed. What is my name? Miss Trunchbull, Nigel said. Then use it when you address me. Now, then let's try again. What's your name? Nigel Hicks, Miss Trunchbull, Nigel said. That's better, the Trunchbull said. Your hands are filthy, Nigel. When did you last time wash them? Well, let me think, Nigel said. That's rather difficult to remember exactly. It could have been yesterday, or it could have been the day before. The Trunchbull's whole body and face seemed to swell up as thought she were being inflated by a bicycle pump. I knew it, she bellowed. I knew as soon as I saw you. That you were nothing but a piece of filth. What is your father's job? A sewage worker? He's a doctor, Nigel said. And a jolly good one. He says we're all so covered with bugs anyway that a bit of extra dirt never hurts anyone. I'm glad he's not my doctor, the Trunchbull said. And why, might I ask, is there the baked bean on the front of your shirt? We had them for lunch, Miss Trunchbull. And do you usually put your lunch on the front of your shirt, Nigel? Is that what this famous doctor father of yours has taught you too? Baked beans are hard to eat, Miss Trunchbull. They keep falling off my fork. You are disgusting, the Trunchbull bellowed. You are a walking germ factory. I don't wish to see any more of you today. Go and stand in the corner, and one leg with your face to the wall. But Miss Trunchbull, don't argue with me, boy, or I will make you stand on your head. Now do as you're told. Nigel went. Now stay where you are, boy, while I test you on your spelling to see if you learned anything at all in this past. And don't turn around when you talk to me. Keep your nasty little face to the wall. Now then, spell right. Which one? Nigel asked. The thing you do with a pen, or the one that means the opposite of wrong? He happened to be an unusual bright child, and his mother had worked hard with him at home on spelling and reading. The one with the pen, you little fool. Nigel spelled it correct, which surprised the Trunchbull. She thought she had given him a very tricky word, on that he wouldn't yet have learned, and she was peeved that he had succeeded. Then Nigel said, still balancing on a leg and facing the wall, Miss Honey taught us how to spell a new, very long word yesterday. And what's the word? The Trunchbull asked softly. The softer her voice became, the greater the danger, but Nigel wasn't to know this. Difficulty, Nigel said. Everyone in the class can spell difficulty now. What nonsense, the Trunchbull said. You are not supposed to learn long words like that until you are at least 8 or 9. And don't try to tell me everybody in the class can spell the word. You are lying to me, Nigel. Test someone, Nigel said, taking an awful chance. Test anyone you like. The Trunchbull's dangerous glittering eyes removed around the class. You, she said, pointing at a tiny and rather daft little girl called Prudence, spelled difficult. Amazingly, Prudence spelled it correctly and without a moment to hesitate. The Trunchbull was properly taken aback. She snored. And I suppose Miss Honey wasted the whole of one lesson teaching you to spell that one single word. Oh no, she didn't, pipped Nipple. Miss Honey taught it us in 3 minutes, so we never forget it. She teaches us a lot of words in 3 minutes. And what exactly is this magic word, Miss Honey? Asked the headmistress. I show you, pipped up the brave Nigel again, coming to Miss Honey's rescue. Can I put my other foot down and turn around, please, while I show you? You may do neither, snapped the Trunchbull. Stay as you are and show me just the same. All right, said Nigel, wobbling crazily on his leg. Miss Honey give us a little song about each word and we all sing it together and we learn to spell it into time. Would you like to hear the song about difficulty? I should be fascinated, the Trunchbull said, in a voice dripping with sarcasm. Here it is, Nigel said. Mrs. D, Mrs. I, Mrs. Phi, Mrs. C, Mrs. U, Mrs. LTE. That spells difficulty. How perfectly ridiculous, snorted the Trunchbull. Who are all these women married? And anyway, you are not mean to teach poetry when you're teaching spelling. Cut it out in the future, Miss Honey. But it does teach them some of the hardest words wonderful well, Miss Honey moaned. Don't argue with me, Miss Honey, the headmistress thundered. Just do as you're told. I shall now test the class on the multiplication tables to see if Miss Honey has taught you anything at all in the direction. The Trunchbull had returned to her place in front of the class, and her diabolical gaze was moving slowly along the rows of tiny pupils. You, she barked, pointed at a small called Rupert in the front row. What is 2 sevens? 16, Rupert answered with a foolish abandon. The Trunchbull started advancing slow and soft-footed upon Rupert in the manner of tigress stalking a smart deer. Rupert suddenly became aware of the danger signals and quickly tried again. It's 18, he cried. 2 sevens are 18, not 16. You ignorant little slug, the Trunchbull bellowed. You wightless wheat, you empty-headed hamster, you stupid glob of glue. She had now stationed herself directly behind Rupert, and suddenly she extended a hand the size of a tennis racket and grabbed all the hair and Rupert's head in her fist. Rupert had a lot of golden-colored hair. His mother thought it was beautiful to behold and took a delight allowing it to grow extra long. The Trunchbull had as a great dislike for long hair and boys as she had for plaits and pigtails on girls, and she was about to show it. She took a firm grip of Rupert's long golden tresses with her giant hand then. By raising her muscular right arm, she lifted the helpless boy clean out his chair and held him a lot. Rupert yelled. He twisted and squirmed and kicked the air and went on yelling like a stuck pig, and Miss Trunchbull bellowed, 2 sevens are 14. 2 sevens are 14. I am not letting you tell you say it. From the back of the class, Miss Honey cried out, Miss Trunchbull, please let him down. You are hurting him. All his hair might come out. And well, it might have if he doesn't stop wriggling, snorted the Trunchbull. Keep still your screwing worm. It really was a quite extraordinary sight to see this giant headmistress dangling the small boy high in the air, and the boy spinning and twisting like something on the end of string and shrieking his head off. Say it, bellowed the Trunchbull. Say 2 sevens are 14. Hurry up, or I start jerking you up and down, and then your hair really will come out and we'll have enough of it stuff at the sofa. Get on with it, boy. Say 2 sevens are 14, and I let you go. 2 sevens are 14, gasped Rupert. Whereupon the Trunchbull, true to her word, opened her hand and cried literally let him go. He was a long way off the ground when she released him, and he plumped to earth and hit the floor and bounced like a football. Get up and stop whimpering, the Trunchbull barked. Rupert got up and went back to his desk, massaging his scalp with the opponent's hands. The Trunchbull returned to the front of the class. The children sat there hypnotized. None of them had seen anything quite like this before. It was splendid entertainment. It was better than a pantomime, but with one big difference. In this room there was an enormous human bomb in front of them, which was liable to explode and blow someone to bits any moment. The children's eyes were relieved, and the mistress, I don't like small people, she was saying. Small people should never be seen by anybody. They should be kept out of sight in boxes like hairpins and buttons. I cannot for the life of me see why children have to take so long to grow up. I think they do it on purpose. Another extremely brave little boy in the front row spoke up and said, But surely you were a small person once, Miss Trunchbull, weren't you? I never was a small person, she snapped. I've been large all my life, and I don't see why others can be the same way. But you must have started out as a baby, the boy said. Me? A baby? Shouted the Trunchbull. How dare you suggest such a thing? What cheek! What infernal insolence! What's your name, boy? And stand up when you speak to me. The boy stood up. My name is Eric Ink, Miss Trunchbull, he said. Eric what? The Trunchbull shouted. Ink, the boy said. Don't be an ass, boy. There's no such name. Look in the phone book, Eric said. You see my father there under Ink. Very well then, Trunchbull said. You may be Ink, young man, but let me tell you something. You're not indelible. I will very soon rub you out of your try getting clever with me. Spell. I don't understand, Eric said. What do you want me to spell? Spell what, you idiot. Spell the word what. What? Eric said, answering too quickly. There was a nasty silence. I gave you one more chance, the Trunchbull said, not moving. Ah, yes, I know, said he. It gets an H. in V-H-O-T. It's easy. In 2 large strides, the trunchbull was behind Eric's desk, and there she stood, a pillar of doom towering over the helpless boy. Eric glanced fearfully back over his shoulder at the monster. I was right, wasn't I? He moaned nervously. You were wrong, the trunchbull barked. In fact, you striked me as a sort of poisonous little bookmark that will always be wrong. You sit wrong, you look wrong, you speak wrong, you are wrong all around. I will give you one more chance to be right. Spell what? Eric hesitated. Then he said very slow, it's not V-O-T and it's not V-O-H-T. I know, it must be V-H-O-T-T. Standing behind Eric, the trunchbull reached out and took hold of the boy's 2 ears, one with each hand, pinching them between forefinger and thumb. Oh, Eric, cried. Oh, you're hurting me. I haven't started yet, the trunchbull said briskly, and now taking a firm grip on his 2 ears. She lifted him bodily out of his seat and held him aloft. Like Rupert before, Eric squirreled the house down. From the back of the class, Miss Honey cried out, Miss Trunchbull, don't, please, let him go. His ear might come off. They never come off, the trunchbull shouted back. I have discovered through long experience, Miss Honey, that the ears of a small boys are stuck very firmly to their heads. Let him go, Miss Trunchbull, please, begged Miss Honey. You could damage him, you really could. You could wrench them right off. Ears never come off, the trunchbull shouted. They stretch most marvelously, like these are doing now. But I can assure you, they never come off. Eric was squirreling louder than ever and pedaling the air with his legs. Matilda had never before seen a boy, or anything else for that matter, held aloft by his ears alone. Like Miss Honey, she felt sure both ears were going to come off at any moment with all the weight that was on hold them. The trunchbull was shouting. The word what is spelled V-W-H-A-T. Now spell it, you little wart. Eric didn't hesitate. He had learned from watching Rupert a few minutes before that the quicker he answered, the quicker you were released. So he spelled the word correct. Still holding him by the ears, the trunchbull lowered him back into his chair behind his desk. Then she marched back to the front of the class, dusting off her hands on against the others like someone who has been handling something rather grimy. That's the way to make them learn, Miss Honey, she said. You take it from me. It's not good just telling them. You're good to hammer it into them. There's nothing like a little twisting and twiddling to encourage them to remember things. It concentrates their minds wonderful. You could do them permanent damage, Miss Trunchbull, Miss Honey cried out. Oh, I'm quite sure I have, the Trunchbull answered, grinning. Eric's ears will have stretched quite considerable in the last couple of minutes. They'll be much longer now than they were before. There's nothing wrong with that, Miss Honey. I'll give him an interesting pixie look at the rest of his life. But Miss Trunchbull... Oh, shut up, Miss Honey. You're as wet as any of them. If you can copy her, then you can go and find a job some cottonwool private school for rich brats. When you have been teaching for as long as I have, you realize that it's no good at all being kind to children. Read Nicholas Nickleby, Miss Honey, by Mr. Dickens. Read about Mr. Wickwards Gurius, the Admiral Headmaster. He know how admirable headmasters. He know how to handle the little brutes, didn't he? He know how to use the birch, didn't he? He kept their backsides so warm. You could have fried eggs and bacon on them. A fine book that. But I don't suppose this bunch of mommers we've got here will ever read it because they look of them they are never going to learn to write anything. I've read it, Matilda said quietly. The Trunchbull flicked her head around and looked carefully at the small girl with dark hair and deep brown eyes sitting in the second row. What did you say? They asked sharply. I said I read it, Miss Trunchbull. Read what? Nicholas Nickleby, Miss Trunchbull. You are lying to me, madam, the Trunchbull shouted, glaring at Matilda. I doubt there's a single child in the entire school who has read the book, and here you are, an unaged shrimp sitting in the lowest form there is, trying to tell me a whooping great lie like that. Why do you do it? You must take me for a fool. Do you take me for a fool, child? Well, Matilda said then. She hesitated. She would like to have said, yes, I jolly well do. But that would have been suicide. Well, she said again, still hesitating, refusing to say no. The Trunchbull sensed what the child was thinking, and she didn't like it. Say it up when you speak to me, she snapped. What's your name? Matilda stood up and said, My name is Matilda Wormwood, Miss Trunchbull. Wormwood it is. The Trunchbull said, In the case, you must be the daughter of the man who owns Wormwood Motors. Yes, Miss Trunchbull. He's a crook, the Trunchbull shouted. A week ago he sold me a second-hand car that he said was almost new. I thought he was a splendid fellow then, but this morning, while I was driving that car through the village, the entire engine fell out and the road. The whole thing was filled with sawdust. The man's thief and a robber. I have his skin for sausage. You see if I don't. He's clever at this business, Matilda said. Clever? My foot, the Trunchbull shouted. Miss Honey tells me that you are the man to be clever, too. Well, madam, I don't like clever people. They are all crooked. You are most certainly crooked. Before I fell out with your father, he told me some very nasty stories about the way you behaved at him. But you do better not try anything in the school, young lady. I shall be keeping a very careful eye on you from now on. Sit down and keep quiet. The first miracle. Matilda sat down again at her desk. The Trunchbull seated herself behind the teacher's table. It was the first time she had sat down during the lesson. Then she reached out a hand and took hold of a water judge. Still holding the judge by the handle, but not lifted it yet, she said, I have never been able to understand why small children are so disgusting. They are the bane of my life. They are like insects. They should be got rid of as early as possible. We get rid of flies with fly spray and by hanging up fly paper. I have often thought of inventing a spray for getting rid of small children. How splendid it would be to walk into the classroom with a giant spray gun in my hands and start pumping it. Or better still, some huge stripes of sticky paper. I would hang them all around the school and you all get stuck to them, and that would be the end of it. Wouldn't that be a good idea, Miss Honey? If it means to be a joke, Headmiss, I don't think it's very funny, Miss Honey said from the back of the class. You wouldn't, would you, Miss Honey? The Trunchbull said. And it's not meant to be a joke. My idea of perfect school, Miss Honey, is one that has no children in it at all. One of these days I shall start up with a school like that. I think it will be a very successful one. The woman's mad, Miss Honey was telling herself. She's round the twist. She's on who ought to be get rid of. The Trunchbull now lifted the large blue porcelain water jug and poured some water into her glass. And suddenly, with the water out come to a long slimy newt straight into the glass. Plop! The Trunchbull let out yell and leaped off her chair as sort of a firecracker and had gone off underneath her. And now the children saw the long thin slime yellow blessed lizard-like creature twisting and turned in the glass and screamed and jumped about as well shouting. What is this? Oh, it's disgusting. It's a snake. It's a baby crocodile. It's an alligator. Look out, Miss Trunchbull, cried Lavender. It will bite. The Trunchbull, this mighty female giant, stood there in her green breeches, quivering like a blank manage. She was especially furious that someone had succeeded in making her jump and yell like this, because she prided herself on her thoughtness. She stared at the creature twisting and wriggling in the glass. Curiously enough, she had never seen a newt before. Natural history was not her strong point. She hadn't the faintest idea what this was thing. It certainly looked extremely unpleasant. Slowly, she sat down again in her chair. She looked at this moment more terrifying than ever before. The fires of fury and hatred were smoldering in her small black eyes. Matilda, she barked, stand up. Who, me? Matilda said. What have I done? Stand up, you disgusting little crookage. I haven't done anything, Miss Trunchbull. Honestly, I haven't. I never seen the slime thing before. Stand up at once, you filthy little maggot. Matilda got on her feet. She was in the second row. Lavender was in the row behind her. You have put a crocodile in my drink water, the Trunchbull yelled back. There is no worse crime in the world against the headmistress. Now sit down and don't say a word. Go on, sit down at once. But I'm telling you, Matilda shouted, refusing to sit down. I'm telling you to shut up, the Trunchbull roared. If you don't shut up at once and sit down, I shall remove my belt and let you have it with the end of that as the buckle. Slowly Matilda sat down. Oh, the rottenness of it all. The unfairness. How dare they expel her for something she had done? I'm sorry, it's 5 a.m. here. So I get lonely more awake. Matilda felt herself getting angrier and angrier and angrier. So unbearable angry that something was bound to explode inside her very soon. The newt was still swimming in the tall glass of water. It looked horrible, uncomfortable. The glass was not big enough for it. Matilda glared at the Trunchbull. How she hated her. She glared at the glass with the newt in. She longed to march up and grab the glass and tip the contents newt all over the Trunchbull's head. She trembled to think what the Trunchbull would do to her if she did that. The Trunchbull was sitting behind the teacher's table, staring with a mixture of horror and fascination at the newt wriggle in the glass. Matilda's eyes were also riveted on the glass. And now, quite slowly, there began to creep over Matilda a most extraordinary and particular feeling. The feeling was mostly in the eyes. A kind of electricity seemed to be gathering inside them. A sense of power was brewing in those eyes of hers. A feeling of great strength was settling itself deep inside her eyes. But there was also another feeling which was something else altogether, and which she could not understand. It was like flashes and lightning. Little waves of lightning seemed to be flashing out of her eyes. Her eyeballs were beginning to get hot, as thought was energy was building up somewhere inside them. It was an amazing sensation. She kept her eyes steadily on the glass, and now the power was concentrated itself in a small part of each eye and growing stronger and stronger, and it felt as though millions of tiny little invisible arms with hands on them were shooting out of her eyes towards the glass she was staring at. "Tip it," Matilda whispered. "Tip it over." She saw the glass wobble. It actually tipped backwards a fraction of an inch, then reacted itself again. She kept pushing it with all those 2 million invisible little arms and hands that were reaching out from her eyes, feeling the power that was flashing straight from the 2 little black dots in the very center of her eyeballs. "Tip it," she whispered again. "Tip it over." Once more the glass wobbled. She pushed harder still, willing her eyes to shoot out all more power. And then, very, very slowly she could hardly see it happening, the glass began to lean backwards, farther and farther and farther backwards until it's balancing on just one edge of the base. And there it erected for a few seconds before it finally toppling on, falling with a sharp tingle on the desktop. The water in it and the scrimmed nude splashed out all over Miss Trunchbull's enormous bosom. The headmistress let out a yell that must have rattled every window pane in the building, and for the second time in the last 5 minutes she shot out of her chair like a rocket. The nude clutched disappearedly at the cotton smoke where it covered the great chest, and there it slung with a little claw-like feet. The Trunchbull looked down and saw it on the shawl below it even louder, and with a swipe of her hands she sent the creature flying across the room. It landed on the floor beside Lavender's desk, and very quickly she ducked down and picked it up and put it into her pencil box for another time. And Newt, she decided, was a useful thing to have around. The Trunchbull, her face more like a boiled ham than ever, was standing before the glass quivering with fury. Her massive bosom was heaving in and out, and the splash of water down the front of it made a dark, wet patch that had properly soaked right through her skin. "Who did it?" she roared. "Come on! Own up, step forward, you won't escape this time. Who is responsible for this dirty job? Who pushed over the glass?" Nobody answered. The whole room remained silent as to pomp. "Matilda," she roared, "it was you, I know it was you." Matilda in a second roar sat very still and said nothing. A strange feeling of certainty and confidence was sweeping over her, and all of a sudden she found that she was frightened by nobody in the world. With the power of her eyes alone, she had accomplished a glass of water to tip and spill its contents over the horrible headmistress. And nobody who could do that could do anything. "Speak up, you clotted carbuncle," roared the Trunchbull. "Admit that you did it." Matilda looked right back into the flashing eyes of this infrared female giant and said with the total calmness, "I have not moved away from the desk, Miss Trunchbull, since the lesson began. I can say no more." Suddenly, the entire class seemed to rise up against the headmistress. She didn't move. They cried out, "Matilda didn't move. Nobody moved. You must have knocked it over yourself." "It most certainly did not knock it over myself," roared the Trunchbull. "How dare you suggest a thing like that? Speak up, Miss Honey. You must have seen everything who knocked over my glass." "None of the children did, Miss Trunchbull," Miss Honey answered. "I can vouch for that nobody has moved from his or her desk all the time you've been here, except for Nigel, and he has not moved from his corner." Miss Trunchbull glared at Miss Honey. Miss Honey met her gaze without flinching. "I am telling you the truth, headmistress," she said. "You must have knocked over without knowing it. That sort of thing is easy to do." "I am fed up with your useless bunch of midgets," roared the Trunchbull. "I refuse to waste any more of my precious time in here." And with that she marched out of the classroom, slamming the door behind her. In the stunned silence that followed, Miss Honey walked up to the front of the class and stood behind her table. "Phew," she said. "I think we had enough school for one day, don't you? The class is dismissed. You may all go out into the playground and wait for your parents to come and take you home." The second miracle. Matilda did not join the rush to get out of the classroom. After the children had all disappeared, she remained at her desk, quiet and thoughtful. She knew she had to tell somebody about what had happened with the class. She couldn't possibly keep a giant secret like that bottled up inside her. What she needed was just one person, one wise and sympathetic grown-up who could help her to understand the meaning of this extraordinary happening. Neither her mother nor her father would let be of any use at all. If they believed her story, and it was doubtful, they almost certainly would fail to realize what an astounding event it was that had taken place in the classroom this afternoon. On the spur of the moment, Matilda decided the one person she would like to confide in was Miss Honey. Matilda and Miss Honey were now the only two left in the classroom. Miss Honey had seated herself at her table and was riffling through some papers. She looked up and said, "Well, Matilda, aren't you going outside with the others?" Matilda said, "Please, may I talk to you for a moment?" "Of course you may. What's troubling you?" "Something very peculiar has happened to me, Miss Honey." Miss Honey came instant alert. Ever since the two distraught meetings she had recently about Matilda, the first with the headmistress and the second with the dreadful Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, Miss Honey had been thinking a great deal about this child and wondering how she could help her. And now, here was Matilda sitting in the classroom with a curiously exact look on her face and asking if she could have a private talk. Miss Honey had never seen her looking so wide-eyed, open, peculiar before. "Yes, Matilda," she said. "Tell me what's happened to you, that it's so peculiar." "Miss Trunchbull isn't going to expel me, is she?" Matilda asked. "Because it wasn't me who put the creature in the huge water. I promise you, it wasn't." "I know it wasn't," Miss Honey said. "I'm going to be expelled?" "I think not," Miss Honey said. "The headmistress simply got a little overexcited, that's all." "Okay, good," Matilda said. "But it is what I want to talk to you about." "What do you want to talk to me about, Matilda?" "I want to talk to you about the glass of water with the creature in it," Matilda said. "You saw it spilling all over Miss Trunchbull, didn't you?" "I did indeed." "Well, Miss Honey, I didn't touch it. I never did." "I know you didn't," Miss Honey said. "You heard me telling the headmistress that I couldn't possibly have been you." But it was me, Miss Honey," Matilda said. "That's exactly what I want to talk with you about." Miss Honey paused and looked carefully at the child. "I don't think I quite follow you," she said. "I got so angry at being accused of something I hadn't done that I made it happen." "You made what happen, Matilda?" "I made the glass tip over." "I still don't quite understand what you mean," Miss Honey said gently. "I did it with my eyes. I was staring at it and wishing to tip on them eyes and went all hot and funny and some sort of power came out of them and the glasses just toppled over." Miss Honey continued to look steadily at Matilda through her steel-rimmed spectacles, and Matilda looked back at her just as steadily. "I'm still not following you," Miss Honey said. "Do you mean you actually willed the glass to tip over?" "Yes," Matilda said, "with my eyes." Miss Honey was silent for a moment. She did not think that Matilda was meaning to tell a lie. It was more likely that she was simply allowing her vivid imagination to run away with her. "You mean you were sitting where you are now, and you told the glass to top over, and it did?" "Something like this, Miss Honey, yes." "If you did that, then it is just about the greatest miracle a person have ever performed since the time of Jesus." "I did it, Miss Honey. It is extraordinary," thought Miss Honey often. Small children have flights of fancy like this. She decided to put an end to it as gently as possible. "Could you do it again?" she asked, not unconditionally. "I don't know," Matilda said, "but I think I might be able to." Miss Honey moved the now empty glass to the middle of the table. "Should I put water in it?" she asked, smiling a little. "I don't think it matters," Matilda said. Very, very well then. Go ahead and tip it over." "It may take some time." "Take all the time you want," Miss Honey said. "I'm not in a hurry." Matilda sitting in the second row about 10 feet away from Miss Honey, but her elbows on the desk and cupped her face in her hands, and this time she gave the order right at the beginning. "Tip, glass, tip." She ordered it, but her lips didn't move and she made no sound. She simply shouted the words inside her head. And now she concentrated the whole of her mind and her brain and her will up into her eyes, and once again, but much more quietly than before, she felt the electric gathering, and the power was beginning to surge, and the hotness was coming into the eyeballs, and the millions of tiny invisible arms with hands on them were shooting out towards the glass, and without making any sound at all, she kept on shouting inside her head for the glass to go over. She saw it wobble, then it tiddled, then it toppled right over and fell with a tinkle on the tabletop, not 12 inches from Honey's folded arms. Miss Honey's mouth dropped open and her eyes stretched so wide you could see the withers all around. She didn't say a word. She couldn't. The shock of seeing the miracle performed had struck her dumb. She gaped at the glass, leaning well away from it, and now as thought it might be a dangerous thing. Then slowly she lifted her head and looked at Matilda. She saw the child with her face and with his paper trembling all over. The eyes glazed, staring straight ahead and seeing nothing. The whole face was transfigured, the eyes round and bright, and she was sitting there speechless, quite beautiful, in a blaze of silence. Miss Honey waited, trembling a little herself, and watched the child as slowly stirred herself back into consciousness. And then, suddenly, click went her face into a look of almost servile calm. "I am all right," she said and smiled. "I'm quite all right, Miss Honey. So don't be alarmed. You seemed so far away," Miss Honey whispered, awestruck. "Oh, I was flying past the stairs on silver wings," Matilda said. "It was wonderful." Miss Honey was still gazing at the child in absolute wonderment, as thought she were the curtain, the beginning of the world, the first morning. "I went much quicker this time," Matilda said quietly. "It's not possible," Miss Honey was gasping. "I don't believe it. I simply don't believe it." She closed her eyes and kept them closed for a quiet while, and when she opened them again, it seemed as thought she had gathered herself together. "Would you like to come back and have a tea at my cottage?" she asked. "Oh, I would love to," Matilda said. "Good. Gather up your things and I meet you outside in a couple of minutes. You won't tell anybody about this. This thing that I did, will you, Miss Honey? I wouldn't dream of this, Miss Honey said. So there are a few pages left. I think if I maybe will read one chapter more. Let me look how long it goes. Okay, this is a very long chapter, so I will end now the fourth part of my ASMR session where I wrote for you Matilda by Roald Dahl. I try always be at around 1 hour to don't make it too long and also don't make it too short. So this was the fourth part of Roald Dahl book Matilda. And if you not already read the book before or listened to the chapters before the part 1 until now, then I just can recommend you to do so. You find the other videos here in my playlist. And I don't even just read books. I also make mukbang videos and I go on the adventure of sounds, even with some guests. It is very entertaining because ASMR have actually no real rules and I just play around and take you on this little adventure here. If you like the book and you are curious for more, feel free to follow, subscribe, click on the notification bell and let a comment here, because with every support, I get the opportunity to do even more what I love and what I like. I am very relaxed right now. I think I have to stand up more, make my body long, go outside, breathe a little bit, and get more energy for the last round of this book. It was a very big book, and I am happy that I'm already came so far and can't wait what the next chapters will release to us. I hope that you don't have a trunch ball like this in your life. And even though you just learn from it and actually see how you can do it better, I always have to say, when I have someone in my life who is poisoned, I try to avoid it, but for sure, I also see the reason why, and I can question myself in this kind of person and can see if I want to go this path or if I don't. And it's also kind of nice to read this book and have this very objective view into this kind of relationships, what is kind of amazing. So I hope that you click on the next time, the last, I guess, last part of Matilda, and listen when I read the book and finished it. And until then, I wish you a pleasant time. Feel free to check out all the other videos I have to offer. And yeah, enjoy the satisfaction of ASMR. Have a wonderful time. Goodbye.